Hi, and welcome back to End Times Prophecy News Update. This is Carrie Geren Scoggins reporting. This week in the news, the state of New York hiring on foreign law enforcement, allowing them to wear turbans. As most will remember, there has been many Christian and Jewish sects come along that have wished to apply to work in law enforcement in the state of New York, denied the right to wear their religious regalia. Will they now allow female Islamic officers to wear burqas? If they intend to change the rules only for Islam, does this not violate separation of church and state endorsement of religion due to unequal treatment? Again, Christians and Jews denied the legal right to wear their hats and beards that pertain to their faith. The state of New York has already instated legislation to demand that all support transgender rights, recognizing 31 different genders. And if an individual refuses to refer to a man in a dress as she rather than he, that they will be fined up to $35,000. Of course, this violates federal law, the Biblical Core Values ruling, protecting Christian civil rights on the job and off, their legal right to adhere to biblical core values such as Romans chapter 1. This also includes fellow officers in the New York Police Department, their legal right to verbalize their belief system, the legal right of police officers on the job to espouse their own viewpoint. When the hate speech law was overturned in the Phelps hearings, the federal Supreme Court upheld the legal right to debate the issue, citing specifically the legal right to debate Islam, homosexuality, and abortion. The state of New York has denied the legal right to debate the issue, the legal right to adhere to biblical core values, while on the job and off. The real discriminatory acts will be left in their wake as they send in Islamic officers that will come in and deny Christian civil rights and the civil rights of Christians while on the job. Their legal right to oppose Islamic viewpoints, their legal right to debate Islam, their legal right to speak out against Islamic tenets and other issues such as homosexuality and transgenderism. This is about Christian civil rights and the legal right to debate the issue, the legal right to adhere to biblical core values, and the 1964 Civil Rights Act, giving Christians protected class status while on the job. The legal right to oppose the state's views. Fundamental civil rights. Will hiring on Islamic officers end in tyranny in government, as we've all seen in the Black Lives Matter, and cases where there was violence and abuse towards the citizens from New York Police Department. How will this change now that it's Islamic men who will be seemingly above the law? The abuse of power is close at hand. Knowing the federal law and ignoring it is already in place in the state of New York. Federal laws trump state laws, such as their transgender rights bills. And yet, we see that the state of New York denies civil rights to groups that do not support the liberal Democrat agenda. And they also overlook abuse of power, police harassment, and blatant civil rights cases in law enforcement. And It's attacks against their own law enforcement, such as the officer hacked down by an Islamic terrorist with a hatchet. An insult to their own officers. Going as far as to allow turbans and beards when they've not done this for any other religious group. Favoritism is a form of state endorsement, where everyone is not equal. I notice it's not a Jewish group being hired on, nor a group of Mennonites or Amish. And there's also the issue of not being policed by your political opposition. That we saw in Nazi Germany, exactly the same as in the state of New York. Nazi Germany starts out with the all-gay Nazi brown shirts, burning Bibles and Torahs, enforcing a good speak law akin to the now overturned hate speech law that censored the legal right to oppose any homosexual agenda, censoring out the church and the Jewish community's legal right to oppose the gay identity movement. Then, when Hitler converts into Islam, begins following Hajj al-Husseini, the Imam, now called the father of modern jihad, who took over 1/3 of his regiments, 13th Mountain Brigade, Waffen SS, now ran by Islam. The state of New York now has gay officers, and they're going to support homosexual men in dresses, working in law enforcement, just as the all-gay Nazi brown shirts were. And now they're bringing in Islam, taking that same route from one extreme to the other. And it'll most assuredly end in the same hostile way. We've already seen that if there's abuse of a public office in the New York law enforcement, that they're not going to step in and take up for the rights of the citizens. And this time there's a real threat. Being policed by one's political opposition, the Christians and Jews should not be subject to have neither homosexuals nor Islamic men coming in to police them. Policing their own community is one thing, but coming in to police their political and religious opposition is a far cry from what we call civil rights. How many Islamic people are there in the state of New York? There may be a large gay population for the gay officers to police, but is there a large Islamic population that they now need an Islamic group there in law enforcement? Because again, it's illegal for them to police their political and religious opposition. It's an open door for abuse of a public office. It's an open door for Islamic men to come in with a badge to enforce their own personal beliefs, especially against their opposition, the Christians and Jews. And even the bullying of women that speak out in public or wear something they find offensive, yet is not illegal. America needs to take a real strong look at the far left and note the same progression that Nazi Germany fell into with the gay identity movement, the all-gay Nazi brown shirts, the Bible burnings, the censorship or good speak laws that were akin to the hate speech laws that Obama and Pelosi had passed, now overturned by the federal Supreme Court in the Phelps hearings. Hitler's conversion into Islam, the Imam taking over the regiments, and the end result. Leftism hasn't changed. Neither has large socialist bureaus, such as that of Nazi Germany, and that's being instilled here in the United States. Abuse of power and unlimited surveillance, unlimited funds thrown towards a police state. Concerning Adolf Hitler bringing in the Imam, Hajj al-Husseini, and him running 1/3 of the Nazi regiments from thereafter. It was Obama who forced military to bow at Ramadan, fearing offending those in the Middle East. However, violating separation of church and state endorsement in our military, as well as many of the Muslim clerics have done. Yet they want to remove the Bibles from the clerics. So, we see again a blatant double standard that violates the 1964 Civil Rights Act, giving religion protected class status, giving Christians protected class status under the law, and federal Supreme Court rulings. Their civil rights on the job, Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and the Biblical Core Values ruling. Their legal right to adhere to biblical core values, including those that do not condone homosexuality or cross-dressing, Deuteronomy 22:5 and Romans chapter 1. What we saw in Nazi Germany was military officers forced to wear Islamic uniforms, and soon they were bowing, just like our military has done. Our military brought in the wearing of turbans and beards, changing the form of dress, just like that of Nazi Germany. It's time to see the same progression taking place here in the United States as went on in the Third Reich. And note, in the United Nations, how many Islamic forces there are wearing turbans. Christians and Jews need to get politically active and begin to demand their civil rights, and that they're not going to be policed by their political and religious opposition. And their civil rights by federal law are fully intact and remain so. This has been another End Times Prophecy News Update. Carrie Geren Scoggins. Thank you for listening.